Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun. This is our Monsieur Spade Season 1, Episode 4 reaction and review. Let's just start this off with the bad news, the reminder that there are only 2 more episodes to go of this season, and it's just like, you guys have so much, you still need to wrap up. Like, there are still so many different answers, and I think one of the big questions is, who is not working with Phillipe at this point? It just feels like this guy has just found a way to sort of like lasso all these different people in Bazool, and he's like, "You are mine. No, you are mine. You are all mine."
Oh Lord.
That's a really I don't know what that was. I don't know if that was a French accent, if that's just an evil voice, but you know what?
Evil voice.
Phillipe, you are evil. You have evil voice. Maybe Phillipe is just misunderstood. No, he's evil. Phillipe's a bad dude, but you know, this is obviously more complicated than just that.
Listen, I was really happy to just see Phillipe because for him sort of being this like bad dude, evil entity that's kind of like having this bad aura all over Sam Spade and everything that's going on. He has barely been in the show. This is the first time that we've actually even really seen him like in the present show up. It's like at the end of episode 4. Like I was saying in our last review, like he needed to show up by this episode. There was only 6 episodes. Like he needs to show up, and he did. So yeah. I was really happy to see that.
Here's the thing. We now know that Jean-Pierre has been working with Phillipe to some extent. Like maybe that's over now, but is Henri working with Phillipe? Like that's the other big character who may have been lassoed into his orbit at this point. Like there is so much to talk about from there. You know, the flashback at the start of this episode. So much more. But before we get there, hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss any other coverage we have coming here on Monsieur Spade through the rest of this really fun, dramatic season that I hope is not the only one for this show.
Oh man, I really hope not. This show, I was really excited going into it. I've been excited all the way through it. Like, I really hope that there's going to be more of this. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the death of Jacques at the beginning of this episode, 1945. Now, I'm going to admit, I had to watch this scene a couple times because I was just like, is that Gabriella? Is that Patrice? Is that Phillipe and his mom down at the bottom? It was like, there was so much going on. I didn't really get it the first time watching it, but it started to like unfold a couple more times that I watched it.
Yeah, if we're to sort of crystallize what exactly is going on here, it seems as though this is Gabrielle and Jacques. You know, they have a pretty extensive romantic history here, to say the least.
To say the least, yeah.
Jacques has been gone for a while, but as it turns out, Jacques is, you know, a traitor to the cause. And we have sort of learned throughout the show so far that the town of Bazool in particular, through everything that was going on at the time, that they were doing a lot to sort of arm and prepare a resistance movement. Even, you know, like Mother Superior was involved. So
Patrice too.
Yeah, so I think once you get to this point where it's like, okay, we have identified somebody who is working against us rather than for us, it becomes this big community effort where it's just like, okay, you know, Gabrielle, we're not going to just leave you as responsible for dealing with this. You know, we're all going to come together. We're all in this occupation of killing this guy together.
It was intense. Like, that was a really intense opening to sort of see, like, the next person shoot him and the next person. I'm like, how are they getting away with this? Like, oh my goodness, there's so many people there that are all involved in this. Obviously, they're all involved, so they're not going to tell on each other. But I was like, gun after shot after gun. I was just like, how is nobody hearing this, seeing this, coming out to be like, you know, you didn't need to do it. Every person have their shot. And sure enough, down at the bottom of this sort of cliff where everything is going on is Phillipe and his mother looking up. And they may not be able to see everybody that's there, but they are seeing some of what is going on. It feels like, to me, tinfoil hats, guys, theories, that the reason that Phillipe and his mother to some degree, but mostly Phillipe, is as powerful as he is, and that people are kind of owing him for things in general, is that he's not just like a thief or whatever that Sam thinks he is, but that he's a harborer of secrets, and he has a lot of secrets on everybody in this town.
Here's the thing I really need to know about Phillipe is just like, what percentage of his gathering of information here is luck, and what percentage of it is based entirely on skill? Like, because there's a certain amount of this that was clearly just dictated by him and his mother being in a certain place at a certain time.
Yeah, or that because it was like shot after shot after shot, that maybe it was like, "What's that shot? I heard another one. Let's go to the door. There's 5 more," like it was just that's why I was like, "Okay, I get it. They wanna have this dramatic scene," and it
Yeah.
worked, and it was really good and lots of payoff on it. But at the same time, it's like, don't you guys wanna be, like, just a little bit more on the down low with this? Like, you're shooting him so many times over and over again that people are going to be like, "Hey, what's going on over there? Like, I've heard, like, 10 gunshots."
These are clearly people who at this particular point no longer have any chill, and they're just like, you know what? We're just gonna get this person out of here. We're just gonna move on. It's all gonna be
0 apps given.
no kidding. Okay, so that's one part of the big Phillipe question coming out of this episode. The other part of it, we alluded to this earlier, is Henri working with Phillipe?
Yeah, I mean, we had this big cliffhanger at the end of the last episode where, someone was in the house and, Sam was getting strangled. And, like, was Teresa going to be taken? And who comes in? Henri. Why is he there? Like, it was very weird. And even Sam was like, why are you here? Like, oh, well, you told me to watch Teresa. Not when I'm around in the middle of the night. Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, it's really okay. It raises a couple of questions here. Is Henri just here at the middle of the night because he is just Mr. Creeper and not the Minecraft kind, but just like Mr. Creeper times 10,000, and he's just like, I have to look after Teresa at all times because there's something really weird going on there, but it's also at the same time, and we raised this question in the last review, is he sort of using this as a cover for some sort of bigger mission or bigger cause? I mean, it's also
Yeah.
possible it could very well be both, but it does just sort of feel like him being creepy, nobody's going to assume anything more than that just because him being creepy is enough justification.
Yeah, I think that he's probably working with Philippe and he was, trying to get information. He had brought some of his buddies maybe and set this all up and, was trying to get information on where is the kid and that he could help get the kid back to Philippe because maybe he owes Philippe as well. Maybe he's working with Philippe as well. And then when it all went sideways, in comes Henri to be like, oh, I took care of this guy. I caught this guy.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I have you. You can trust me. And I mean, Sam is definitely not trusting him the way that he did. Teresa also is not trusting him. We saw her like kind of seduce him and give him that kiss, or I was just like, oh my God, you are 15. He is an adult. Please stop. But she was doing it to be able to pull this book off of him. So clearly she's got suspicions as well.
I just thought it was really pretty brilliant how there was this whole line about how Teresa's taking some things and she's kind of being reminiscent of Sam Spade. And here she is using some of the Sam Spade skill set. We know that Sam is very, very charming. And
yes, he is.
Here she is able to do something to get one over here on Henri. I mean, the question now just becomes, okay, where can they go from here? And it's sort of a larger question about the entirety of this show at this point is that, we've spent so much of this being like the ultimate who done it, who's responsible, who took out all the nuns. I mean, is it really just so obvious as like, okay, this is all about Philippe. Philippe's responsible for everything. And is it rather than who done it? Is it just like, okay, how is Sam Spade going to ultimately stop all of this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it feels like, and I could be wrong. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I feel like it is the monk. I think that all of that is true, that the monk did this and then was trying to get to the boy for the church, and that's why they're protecting him, and the church is just trying to get to the boy. On the other side of it, we have Philippe, who's got whatever his motivation is to keep this kid with him safe. We don't know what that relationship is. Is the kid worth money? To him, is the kid got secrets? Is what is it? Is it his kid? Like, who knows, right? Like, we just don't know what his relationship is with this kid at this point. All we know is that Jean-Pierre owed Philippe a favor. And when he ended up getting his hands on the kid, and he was just like, oh, you're the boy that everybody is killing everybody over.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I'll take him. I'll take care of him. And then just hands him over to Philippe. And Philippe is like, debt is paid.
This is admittedly the part of the episode that I was the most surprised by, mostly just because I didn't think that Jean-Pierre was even capable of this like simple interaction, because what have we seen from Jean-Pierre so far this season? He's got an anger problem. He is pretty erratic. He's really, really desperate. And,
And he's very down on himself.
yeah, but maybe this was ultimately a part of this desperation. It's just sort of that he knew that he had this hanging over him that he was going to have to repay at some point, and ultimately this opportunity comes around, and now if this debt is paid, maybe he can move forward. I still don't have a lot of confidence that Jean-Pierre is going to get it together, just because there's zero evidence that he's going to.
This episode turned me around on Jean-Pierre so
Oh,
much
okay.
in a way that, like, I just feel so much sympathy for him and everything that he's gone through and what he's been put through by his dad, and, you know, when he went away, everything that happened to him, and that he ended up feeling so desperate that he had to make this deal with Phillipe. So we got some backstory on him about all of this when Marguerite decided to go and visit Dennis, that he had these letters from Jean-Pierre that she wanted back. And she was just like, I don't care that you're dying. Give me my letters back. You wanted me to come here. I'm here. And we got some like pretty interesting information. So this is what I've deduced from this scene, that Marguerite was married to Dennis at one point. And he was like, I left my son, I left my wife, you know, to be with you, you know, and at one point he was like, you were too young to be married, and she was like, not too young for you. So to me, they were married. Then he felt like his son Jean-Pierre had betrayed him. He was just like, my son stole you from me. It's like, okay, there's a clear obvious age difference here between Dennis and Marguerite, but
Yeah.
it seems like Jean-Pierre and Marguerite are around the same age. So it may have been a situation where they had met, they had fallen in love, she wanted to be with him, and they left together, and Dennis was pissed off about it. Then we have this situation where Marguerite's basically like, you put him through, you put him through it.
Yeah.
Like, it was really bad for him. It was bad for me. You made him miserable beyond belief. And clearly it's been going on for years and years and years. He's been doing this to him. Even when he was away, it was like, it was still happening. And to the point that Marguerite even went to him at one point, was like, Dennis, like, stop. Like, you need to get him out of there. What can I do to get him out of there and help me? And he was basically like, you can read me all the letters that he has sent you. She did that. He wasn't able to help, or he just didn't help because he's the worst. And then it ended up in a situation where Jean-Pierre was like, I don't want his help. Like, he is putting me through the worst. So I'm going to make a deal with a different devil, and that is Phillipe.
I think that's all really well deduced. I think we're at this point now where Jean-Pierre is desperate, and I do feel for him too. Like,
I feel really for him.
Like, he's a pretty, you know, he's a character who's really, really gone through it, and he's just sort of being pulled in all these different directions. Like, the question that I really have coming out of all this is, we spent a lot of time with Dennis for a character that we really haven't seen or heard that much about so far this season, and it was good from like a backstory perspective.
Yeah, he gave us a lot of information, and it made a lot more sense for me of why now I'm like, okay, Jean-Pierre, like, I have so much more of an understanding of what's going on.
I feel like we're going to see Dennis again in some capacity. I feel like Dennis is going to try to do something to Jean-Pierre. And I know that, you know, he's not doing all that well, but just because he's not doing all that well doesn't mean that, like, he doesn't have somebody else who could work for him or with him or he could hire. I just feel like he's very much a sort of revenge-driven person at this point who's holding on to all this anger towards his son. Like, it really made that character more fully formed and kind of made it feel like, okay, cards are on the table with Jean-Pierre. We know his involvement in everything. We still don't know exactly what Phillipe wants out of Zaid, this boy. And with that, here is my tinfoil hat theory as to what's really happening here.
Yeah.
So we have heard now a lot about Monsieur Phillipe through the entirety of this show, including that, you know, he has taken out a lot of people as a part of this like secret unit in Algeria.
Yeah.
There's all these questions about, you know, his thievery. We've learned a little bit about his relationship with Bridget. It just feels like this guy has created about a million different problems. But like the real through line with a lot of this sort of stuff is that, and you even said this earlier, information is kind of his currency as much as it is anything else. And I think that this boy must be connected in some ways to something that may actually be able to implicate him, because he's very slithery. He's able to sort of
Hmm.
escape any situation no matter what he's done. And I think he realizes that, like, okay, if I control this information that this boy has, like, I need him around me, we can find a way to really make this work, because if he has the information, he is therefore rather powerful. And I think he is more than fine with this idea that this boy is special or chosen. And it's certainly possible that this boy very well is. But I think Philippe is also using that in order to amplify his own search and to do a little bit of a distraction, because there's no better way for somebody to be able to sneak in and get what they want than have everybody be focused on something entirely different. So I think he's just trying to create as much confusion, as much chaos as he possibly can, because then he gets to do what he wants and everybody's just sort of off looking in this other direction.
I think that Philippe knows that this kid is a big score and that the church is after him. He may not know all the details. He might know some of the details. He might know all the details. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
He knows enough that the church wants this kid, and the church is rich and powerful. So if he has the kid, it feels like the kid is a score for him and that he'll be able to get whatever it is that he wants. If the church wants him that badly, they're going to pay for it, sort of thing. Or he will get the information and then he will give it over and let the kid go.
And now we get to the next part of the mystery here, the reveal about George and his mother, who we already knew, we're doing a little
Yeah.
bit of spying. But here's where I'm kind of thinking things are with this at the moment.
Okay.
I'll start by just saying that George may be the worst spy I've ever seen in my entire life. He just like starts bringing up all this knowledge he has of weapons in this like conversation, and then he gets questioned about it. He's just like, "Meh, blah, 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 look over there." It's like, dude, you cannot be this obvious.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's not really that great. Like I've seen a little bit of comments online that maybe he's like doing this for the government or something, but it's kind of like he's kind of like being such a buffoon about it that I don't know if he's thinking that that's the thing that's going to be the distraction. But bringing that up, I was like, if he is working for the government, like they need to fire him. Like he's really quite bad at this.
The thing that I started to think about, and maybe this is crazy, maybe you guys in the comments are going to be like, Matt, you crazy, but it's okay. All right, so what if George and his mom aren't necessarily enemies to Sam Spade? It's just they're going at this from a different angle, and maybe they're looking for information on Philippe in their own way, because we already know Gabrielle's history with Philippe, and we
Mhm.
know about Teresa and Philippe. It's not like that far out of the realm of possibility that they might be like, okay, Sam Spade is somebody who can get us information. Maybe Philippe has visited him. Maybe something can come out of this. Like, there's no guarantee that that's where we're going here, but it does feel like they were hired by somebody. Like, you
Mhm.
don't just like go and decide to spy on somebody on your own. And the fact that they have like that radio tower, which is really not that, inconspicuous. All
I
you got to do is just sort of wander around and, what is that? That's not a weather vane. It's just like they clearly had to have done something to set this up. So it had to have been a plan that was hatched at some point.
Yeah, like them being like basically like, come on over, Patrice, who's an officer, and Sam, who's a detective, over to our place. We're gonna have lunch out here where you can see this, like instead of inside. Like they're being really sloppy about it.
Yeah, I think it's not a unfair question to just sort of be like, do George and his mom kind of suck at this? And you know what? It's kind of fine if they
The
do,
answer is yes.
because it's just like we have enough, big time mysteries that are happening elsewhere
Yeah.
on this show. But I think big picture, what is going on here, and I think this is probably why that flashback at the beginning of this episode was so deliberate, is
Yeah.
that everything that's happened so far this season, whether it be the nuns, this boy, I think it's something that really goes all the way back many to decades before Sam Spade even had a huge presence that was going on in this town. And it's just like all these different secrets have sort of culminated with this one big issue where I think everything is going to be blown out into the open, whether it's
Mhm.
because of this boy or whether it be because of something that Phillipe is holding over everybody. But for Sam, he's either got to figure out if there's a surprise murderer in this case or to just actually get enough information out there on Phillipe that he can put him away. And just based on what we have seen so far, that's going to be really hard when not a lot of people are going to want to turn on him because Philippe could kill him or something in return.
Yeah, I'm the most curious about what is Philippe's motivation. Like, what is it? Why is he protecting this kid? Is it a score? Is it like you suggested that maybe this kid has like information on him and
Yeah,
he needs to keep that quiet? Like, what is it?
I
I
know.
know we only have 2 more episodes and we're not going to find out probably until the very end, but it's driving me crazy.
That's the part of the show that drives me a little bit
So
crazy.
good
Yeah,
though.
I love Monsieur Spade, but it is just sort of like you guys have a really enormous cast for only a 6 episode show, and
Yeah.
beyond that, you are sort of taking your time to reveal a lot of different things. Like, I'm gonna put my faith here, in Scott Frank and the creative team that there's an idea that they fleshed out at the very beginning that it will all make sense at the finale.
Yeah, because like if not, like could they have removed maybe George and his mother? Like are they hopefully they're really important to this whole thing that maybe they're spying for the church or they're or whatever it is. Like they need to be really involved for the amount of time that we have spent with them. They need to be really involved.
Let's hope for answers. And of course, we will be here to break down all of them as they come. But be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more Monsieur Spade updates. You can click
Mhm.
that box right there if you want to watch our most recent reaction and review. Thank you to our patrons as well
Thank
for
you.
your support. You can join our Patreon with the link in the description below to get all sorts of exclusive content. And we'll see you guys here next time.